اسمه لايت هو مسلسل جديد مستوحى من أحداث وشخصيات حقيقية، وأحداثه بتدور وقت الحرب العالمية الثانية، وهو من بطولة بيل بولي وليف شرايبر.
أحداث المسلسل بتركز على شخصية مابجيس اللي ساعدت رئيسها في الشغل وعيلته إنها بتستخبى من القوات النازية وخاطرت بحياتها عشان الهدف ده. بطل المسلسل ليف شرايبر اتأثر بالمسلسل بعد ما قرأ السيناريو في بلد هنعرفها منه في التقرير اللي جاي.
I got this script while I was in Ukraine, and it felt so resonant to me. It felt so timely to me to tell a story about. I didn't know that much about Miep Gies, but a Dutch woman who idea of saying yes to each other now and being present, regardless of where we're from or where we live. The story, you know, at least for me in Ukraine, has always been. What's your connection to Ukraine? And the fact that I have grandparents from there seems really immaterial. It seems like something, it's something that gets me on whatever. And I felt like there's something about Miep that really represents the best in each of us, those of us that say yes to each other. And I felt like it was a great time to tell that story.
I think it was just about tapping into that. She was unwavering in her sense of what the right thing to do was. She didn't hesitate. She also was incredibly selflessness, and her egolessness maybe comes from her upbringing. You know, she was an immigrant herself to the Netherlands. She grew up in Vienna, and she was a starving child after World War I, and at 9 years old was sent on a train to Amsterdam to be adopted by a family who essentially could fatten her up and save her life. And this family, who already had 3 other children, took her in, taught her the language, and she ended up staying in Amsterdam. So I think, you know, having that happen to you at such a young age gives you a very thick skin, and just experiencing the selflessness that her adopted family gave her, I think it just became ingrained in her. I don't know, it was just her personality. And
actually, by making the Franks peripheral, and by making the Nazis and the Jews and the war in general peripheral, and the central storyline being about this young woman kind of coming of age and dealing with her marriage, and that gives you this incredibly intimate perspective on what it's like to have one's life interrupted by an invasion. They're familiar with, you know, rockets hitting our homes, but we can relate to a relationship that's not going well. We can relate to an interrupted meal. We can relate to these things that were happening to these people's lives as the rockets started to fall. And that brings us into the story in a unique way.
No point in retelling a story about this part of history that everyone knows so well if we're just going to be bashed over the head by the same historical facts we already know. It needs to make people feel, what would I do and what should I do, because the situation right now isn't that different.
اشترك في باقات واتشت الشهرية بتبدأ من 14 جنيه و99 قرش، وباقات سنوية تبدأ من 150 جنيه.